Well, good afternoon. Um, I've been witnessing this with all of you and the senseless life taking of George Floyd, and what happened after that has been something that I've never witnessed in my life here in Minnesota. Uh, I I watch all the buildings burn over the last couple of nights and the protests, and I can only come to one conclusion, and I don't say this lightly, and any of you that know me know that I'm a collaborator. I try to do things together. But if the one thing I guess I want to say is above all else, this is a failure in leadership. And that leadership rests on Governor Walz's shoulders. The governor cannot blame the mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I think they can take some responsibility, but it ultimately comes down to him. He has emergency powers. I was surprised in his press conference today that he talked about the fact that he was waiting for the mayors to do things, and frankly, true leadership would have rolled up his sleeves and got right in there, especially as the commander-in-chief, especially with emergency powers. And so my heart is grieved. Just start from the beginning. The Black community rightly deserves justice. And I think maybe for the first time, you saw immediately that 4 police officers were fired. That was a step that I don't think I've ever seen as action taken. And then as of today, at Chauvin, that he was arrested. And so there is justice that is moving forward. But at the same time, it should have been no secret, no surprise that we were going to have huge unrest. And I know all the data pointed to that. And the guard should have been called in right away. And it shouldn't have been a couple hundred, it should have been a couple thousand members of the guard. And in addition, we should have a curfew. I'm hoping the governor calls a curfew. A curfew should have been called yesterday. And I'm hoping that they are much more proactive at arresting those that are committing crimes and not just standing back. And so if you have cooperation with the guard that basically keeps the crowds in the right places and allows the police officers to arrest people that are doing the damage, and then you have a system in place that, again, regains order. But the fact that we just stood down and watched over 170 billion businesses burn in St. Paul, and then many other communities, Oakdale and Blaine and Apple Valley and others, all receiving damage. It wasn't just Minneapolis, St. Paul, it was across the whole Twin Cities area. And so my heart is grieved, but I lay the responsibility fully on the governor. He needs to be responsible for this, not just from today moving forward, but from the beginning as this unfolded. And I'm hoping, that I mentioned 170 stores in St. Paul. Those were owned mostly by minority owners that are just helping their communities, and I hope they come back. And so we have to think about how are we going to get them up and running again. And so with that, I'll take any questions, but I just wanted to express some real frustration about the direction that we've gone, and to watch our cities burning. There's no excuse for that.
Okay, we'll open it up for questions. Hi. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, thanks. Senator Gazelka, tell me who you've spoken with. Have you talked to Governor Walz? Have you talked to Senator Hayden? He said earlier this week that you hadn't connected, and this, of course, started in his district.
So I reached out, or I should say I had a number of connections to Senator Torres Ray, and we, a couple of days ago, lined up a time for me to come down to that actual location where George was killed. And actually, I've been trying to organize with a number of pastors to meet there. We had scheduled for tomorrow afternoon, but we have yet to nail that down with all of the unrest that came yesterday. I did have a text conversation with the governor last night. I said, where is the National Guard? And I was surprised that, frankly, it was only a couple hundred people out there showing no sense of strength against those that would go beyond just legal protest. And so those were a couple. I did reach out to Bob Kroll of Minneapolis Police Officers Union member. I just wanted to know what are the things that could be done to maintain control. So those are some of the people that I reached out to.
If it can follow up too, Senator Hayden said he would like a special session sooner rather than later, that reacting to this can't wait until June 12th. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm not sure what you would do in that special session. We need to evaluate the total loss of buildings. I can't imagine how much it is. It easily could be hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And what are we going to do about that? So I'm not sure what his specific directions are. Typically, I do like things to settle a little bit so that we can look objectively at what are we trying to do and why. But certainly we could have that conversation. And I hope to get down there, like I said, to have a conversation with people.
Thank you.
Of course, my battery shows that it's getting low, but if it goes blank, that's the reason.
All right. So Jessie Van Berkel has a question here. I'll just read it off for her. Do you support passing law enforcement reform bills in a special session? And are there specific measures you want to see passed or reform ideas that you would oppose?
So the four legislative leaders have been meeting and talking about what do we want a special session to be. And that was before any of this took place. But some of the guidelines that we laid forth is we would move nothing forward unless all four leaders agreed and the four chairs of those particular areas agreed. And so that's the process we're going to do. I think we easily could be in more than one special session with the pandemic. And so that would be the guidelines that we lay out addressing anything in special session.
Okay, I've got a list now. Bill Werner, if you want to go ahead and ask your question. Bill, are you there?
While he's figuring it out, just in case it goes blank, then I'll go to my cell phone and click in on the Zoom. So,
Sure.
Okay. So are you hearing me now? I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry. I hit the wrong key there. I apologize. I've got my camera turned off because I really need a haircut, Mr. Leader, just so you know. What needs to be done to rebuild the confidence of the people of Minneapolis in their police department, Mr. Leader? And what specifically can the legislature do to facilitate that?
The first thing I wanted to do is to go down there and actually talk to some of the people down there. I have been doing that lately. I talked to a black pastor on the phone earlier this afternoon about what are the things that would make a difference. I met a different black pastor and 10 members of his community a couple of months ago just to talk about public safety and education and some of those things. And so that's really where it all begins. And, we're not going to fix this overnight, but we absolutely need to be listening. And I think, the whole idea of justice was a theme that I really heard from them, is just making sure that they actually get a fair shake and it's not based on the color of their skin. So that's where we have to look to the future and how we address these things. Why Minneapolis is different than St. Paul, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Mr. Leader, if I may also, and this actually is kind of following up on a line of questioning that you probably saw in the governor's press conference that was launched by Mary, actually, regarding the effectiveness of the response. The governor seemed to acknowledge that there are some coordination problems between the various agencies. Do you agree with that? Is that something that the legislature needs to address?
No, that's an executive branch action. They're the ones that activate the National Guard. They're the ones that can coordinate. They shouldn't be asking other people for a plan. They should be laying out their plan. It was obvious that the Minneapolis mayor was in over his head, and I think that's where the governor needed to respond. With emergency powers and commander-in-chief over our National Guard, the National Guard was simply waiting for a plan of action. I know back in the Pawlenty administration, there was a similar threat for large activity, like this, probably not as great as this, but they had a plan in place. They activated many more National Guard, and they took more concrete action. The fact that the National Guard had no idea what to do because there was no plan given to them and what their role would be was a huge mistake. And that's why I say it was a failure of leadership, because you have to give direction.
Mr. Leader, if I may, just one more and then I'll shut up for sure. Is it appropriate to impose a curfew or martial law in Minneapolis and or St. Paul tonight?
Yeah, I strongly recommend a curfew. I think we should have had a curfew last night. Until you can maintain order and there's not destruction of people's property and risk of lives, you have to take the action necessary. If anything, you have to have more presence of National Guard, not less. You don't want to err on the light side right now. The people want to know that they're safe. And right now they don't. One of my staffers had to pick up a car that was in the shop, and there were 4 people with masks on that broke into numerous stores right next to where he was. This was not in the Minneapolis area. It was one of the outer areas. There was a jogger that was accosted. They were stealing jewelry and other things. And I said, "How do you feel?" He said, I was very afraid. And so people across the Twin Cities, they want to know that they're safe. And if the police just don't have enough so that they have to stand down, that's a real problem. And I'm grateful for the police and the fire department and the National Guard that were out there. Thank you so much for what you're doing. But frankly, they needed more help. And I hope that the governor is activating not just a few hundred, but a couple thousand Guard members. This is serious. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen so many communities up in smoke, and the police not having enough strength to stop them. They should be arrested if they're committing crimes. It's not okay. George Floyd was a tragic loss, but adding this to it diminishes what it could have been focused on and justice for him. And instead, it's the city up in smoke because our governor didn't take the right action.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, Bill. I do have a list of a few folks. I did just want to let you know, Senator Gazelka and Blois, thank you for posting this in the chat, that Mayor Frey did just announce a curfew in effect tonight starting at 8 p.m. So Senator Gazelka, I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Well, that's good news. I hope it's St. Paul as well, because this isn't just located just in Minneapolis. This is widespread. I talked to another person that was up in Blaine last night and was witnessing things going on up there. I heard credible threats about people wanting to do damage to our Capitol. I mean, so it's all over the place. And unless you arrest them, then they're going to continue to move forward with their actions. I mean, I was surprised, frankly, that the governor was passionate about the CNN people being arrested, but not very many other people arrested. No apology to all the small businesses that went up in smoke. No apologies to Minnesota and all the people that were left afraid of the violence that was all around them.
Thank you, Senator. Next on my list is Peter Callahan. Peter, do you want to ask your question?
I do. Hey, Senator, do you have an agreement or understanding with the speaker that the legislature will stay in session throughout the summer, maybe throughout the year, like you did in the spring, where you could come in when you had an agreement? Is that something the speaker thinks is a good idea? I know you do.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that, but we didn't come to any agreements. We want to agree ahead of time on what we can get done. A bonding bill, some of the tax relief provisions, money for small business grants. That number should be significantly higher now. Money for our local governments from the federal stimulus. All of those are areas that we can agree on, need to agree on. but we did not agree whether we would end special session or not. I guess you could have the House do sine die and the Senate could still be there, but we wouldn't be able to pass any legislation after that point, but we could do committees.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Next on my list, Tim Pugmire. Tim, are you able to ask your question?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
then go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering how you go about addressing what you've described as a failure in leadership. Is that an opportunity for Senate Republicans to fill the void, or is it just a matter of waiting till the next election, or is there some oversight opportunities here for the Senate in the coming weeks? How do you see this?
I think with the governor having emergency powers and frankly not up for election for a couple of years, it's really not the issue. The issue is underlining that he doesn't get a pass on this. And when I was listening to his press conference and throwing Mayor Fry under the bus and saying he's responsible from 12 a.m. this morning, that just doesn't cut it. He's responsible from the beginning of this, not the fact that there was a tragic death. I mean, that was a catalyst without a doubt, but not being proactive with the likely scenarios that could come. And so it's not about whether he's in office or not in office. It's about him doing the right thing and getting it right from here forward.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Next on my list is Shannon Lurkey.
Hi, Senator Gazelka. I was just wondering, yesterday, Senator Hayden was highly critical of the police union for the incident that sparked the aftermath. Are you at all critical of the police union, and do you see room for reform in that area?
Well, there's always room for reform, but it really focuses down to one primary police officer and 3 others that were with him, and the judgment that they chose to make there. And that's, watching the video, that's where people are extremely frustrated. And so I want to focus on them and the justice that the Black community is asking for there. The reforms, I'm not aware of the reforms they've been proposing. This is not an area that I've been focused on, but it certainly has raised our attention. And so, we're listening now.
Thank you.
Okay, next question from Ricardo Lopez. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Hey, Senator. So question, because, and I'm sorry if this has been asked in any form, I had to hop on here a little bit late. But my question is, Senate Republicans started out this year making crime in the city a big issue. And I'm curious what response you might have, because I think there was some criticism about that as potentially race baiting. But, given a lot of the unrest, a lot of the, what the governor has called systemic racism, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on whether you agree that there is a long problem here in Minnesota around systemic racism and police brutality affecting Black communities, and whether, the Republican stance at the outset of this year, gives any indication about where Republicans are on this issue.
Well, I'll just say that I myself and Senator Roger Chamberlain and Senator Mark Curran went into inner city Minneapolis and met with a group of 10 or 12 Black community leaders, a pastor. There was a Black Lives Matter person there, a number of folks, just to talk about what is it that we could do to make a difference. I wanted to talk about guns and does it matter? And they really wanted tougher penalties on people that were committing crimes with guns. That was something that surprised me because I hadn't heard that from the legislators representing the area. We talked about education and why is there an education gap, and frustration about the fact that there's no opportunity to take other avenues other than the schools that are failing. They wanted more choices. And so trying to learn what are the root causes of why things are happening. I acknowledge that we have racial disparities in Minnesota. Education disparities are significantly worse than other urban areas. And so I want to be able to look at them objectively, I don't know that we've come to any conclusion there other than I'm trying to get to the bottom of some of these things so that we can actually make decisions that would make a difference.
Sure, but to follow up, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the plan, or at least some of the ideas that were being proposed, were additional police officers. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I didn't hear the last part.
Was part of the push by Republicans to include to hire more police officers in the city?
Yes, I do believe more police officers.
Right, so that's what I was, and so my follow-up is, that's something that Black activists have not wanted to see more. In fact, they've wanted to see reforms around policing. And I know you talked about education and some of the other disparities, but I just want to get this on the record. But do you think that the Minnesota has an issue with systemic racism?
No, that's a really good question, because that was something that we had a conversation with that group of 10 or 12, and I realize it's just a group of 10 or 12 Black community members, but they actually did not feel safe on in their communities, and they actually were not against more police. They wanted to know that their kids could be outside in their swing set swinging and not be worried about some drive-by shooting or crime event happening a block away. And so that's why I say I don't think the verdict is out on whether or not we need more or less police. People want to know that they're safe, and then they have certain ways that they want police officers to respond, and that's the part we have to look at. And certainly, I think people are trying to look at solutions that work.
But with respect, because I'm sorry, I have to press on this point, given the gravity of the situation here. But you mentioned that families were telling you their kids were feeling unsafe, but this has been happening here for years and years, and Black community here has said multiple times they don't feel safe calling the police for help. We've had polling that shows the disproportionate views about white Minnesotans and how they view law enforcement and how that compares with Black Minnesotans. It's a night and day difference. So again, on the issue of what Senate Republicans will do regarding police reforms, what can you say?
Well, mostly what I've already said is where we're at. I mean, if you look at last night, for example, I don't think there were enough police out there to maintain peace and order. But it is something that we're looking at. I gave you some of the things that I have been exploring. Beyond that, I don't think I'm going to be able to.
Right, but again, I'm not hearing an answer to the question about the issue of systemic racism, because this again is what the governor has said very, 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 emphatically today. So again, do you think that there is systemic racism in Minnesota that has led us to this?
I'm not going to answer that any more than I already have. I am exploring why some of the where they are.
Is that a no? You don't think there's systemic racism?
Ricardo, I think Senator Gazelka has been pretty clear that he's having the conversations with members of the community.
That's an important question. I'm sorry, and I think it deserves an answer other than I'm not going to say that.
Well, Ricardo, of course, I think there's racism. I think there's all kinds of problems. I'm trying to get to a deeper level of what are the things that are happening and why, and how do we break some of these cycles, or for people in some of these communities that have huge education disparities. I could tell you that I think Education Minnesota, the teachers union, not allowing flexibility of different ways to learn is one of the big problems, but I'm trying to get deeper into finding the solutions, and I'll continue to work towards solutions. I'll continue to reach out to people in the Black community so I can understand more.
Okay, so you don't believe there's systemic racism?
Ricardo, I think Senator Gazelka has agreed with your premise that racism is a problem. So I don't know that there's more specifics answers to be given there. So I do want to keep this going. If there's other questions.
Systemic racism, the type that is calling for such widespread reform. I don't know why that's a difficult question.
It's not a difficult question to say that there's racism. I absolutely believe that there is racism. To say it is everywhere, if that's how you're defining systemic, I'm not so sure that I would go that far. I do want to find what are the reasons why we have some of the problems we have, and I'm willing to explore them objectively, honestly, and as deeply as I can possibly go with some of the community leaders. I've talked to a number of folks about it, and I'm trying to learn about what are the reasons and why. And that's as far as I am willing to go.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Ricardo. I think we've lost Gazelka's video. Senator Gazelka, I'm not sure if you can still hear us.
Hang on. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but unfortunately your video has turned off again.
Let me, means I'm running out of battery. So let me just go to my phone and go on.
Well, we actually, I don't see any more lists on the questions. So I don't know if you just want to make a few closing comments here.
Yeah, well, just thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the role you play and getting to the bottom of these very, very thorny issues. God willing, we'll get through this. And the only way we do it is working really together and honestly. And first, we have to maintain the peace. We first have to gain control, and that isn't going to be easy. We have to have enough people, enough police officers and National Guard out there to actually stop anybody willing to commit a crime, and any lawlessness needs to be stopped. And then we can return our focus again to George Floyd and what's happening there. But justice has begun. I think that's really encouraging, and it should be encouraging to the Black community that it was handled differently. And we'll watch it through its course. So thank you all for your time. I'm going to plug my iPad in. Sorry about that.
Thank you all, folks. That'll end the press conference. If you do have any additional questions or need more answers on things, please feel free to reach out. And I will end the meeting.